Hello neighbors, it's Brad here at eTrailer, and I'm taking a look at the Saris Super Glide bike storage system for your ceiling. Now this is available in a 4-bike configuration like we have here, as well as a 6-bike configuration. As we all have activities that we like to do as a family, or if we have hobbies or a work shed in our garage is definitely a space where space seems to fill up pretty quickly. And the best way to solve that problem, I've found, is storing things up in some pretty prime real estate that generally is unused. And that's because we don't have a way to store things up. Well, bikes are an activity that tend to take up a lot of space as well. As you can see, I have my family's bikes here, all 4 of them. And this allows me to store them up and also get them down easily without having to worry about making contact with anything else in my garage. Now, the great part about this system that I really like is they are not fixed on those center rails. In fact, when I need to get my bike down, it's no problem to just slide these along and get it to a point where it's going to be easier for me to actually remove the bike rather than reaching over my cars and hoping that I don't scratch them in the process. Now, the other great thing is actually getting our bikes back up is going to be pretty easy here, and the fact that the hooks actually kind of move around, and it's actually adjustable to the wheelbase just by sliding these around. You just hook those on nice and easy. It's definitely a wide open hook too, and that's going to make it easy to hook on there. You're not having to fight to put it up there. And then once it's hanging, I can actually take this and kind of stow it back next to the other bikes, and that's going to allow me to actually gain access to my toolbox still. Now you can see here, even a child's bike like my daughter's here, you're able to actually adjust it to the different wheelbase of the bike, which is really nice. Another thing is these hooks are actually rubber coated and they're just going to slide on the wheel, so there's going to be no frame contact, which is going to be great for all different styles of bikes. Going along with that, you may see the max load of 50 pounds, so that's really going to open it up to a lot of different bikes, whether it be the kid's bike, a road bike, or even a heavy mountain bike. This is going to be no problem. Now, it may not work with your fat tire bikes, as the hook isn't probably wide enough to actually get a secure hold on there, but you can see my mountain bike tires are a 2.35 and it's able to hook on there no problem, and I know that it's going to stay on there nice and sturdy. Now you may say I can mount my bikes up on the ceiling with some standard hooks, and you can see the red one there, and you may get away with that, but we also have this nice track system that makes it easy to get into our actual studs, so it's going to be a nice secure mount. It's really easy to just throw a few wood screws in this and it's going to be pretty secure. Another great thing about this is the fact that it is adjustable, so if you permanently mount some hooks on there and your bike's in the way, well, your bike's going to stay in the way unless you take it down. I can actually move these around if I need to gain access, so if I need to go to the other side, I can simply just slide these all over and I'll be able to get to that wall. Whereas some of those permanent mounts, again, you're kind of stuck with what you got. So if I need to get up on my shelf to grab some car parts, I can move those and I still have all that room to do it. The sliding rails are really nice, not only for the ability to gain access to things in your garage, but also compact storage. You can really get these nice and close, and you can kind of determine if they're going to make contact with one another or not. But if, you know, say the trails are muddy and I can't take my mountain bike out, that's not a problem. I just slide this out of the way and I can gain access to my road bike and still be able to hop in here and pull my bike down with no problems. Now, mounting it up is actually pretty easy just by finding some studs. So really, if you're not limited to just a garage, if you have a walkout basement or if you have an apartment flat with a storage area, pretty much anywhere where there's going to be studs, you're able to actually put this up. It also looks really nice in the fact that it is a nice aluminum finish, and it's also going to be rust resistant and lightweight when you're actually putting it up. So sliding this is nice because those rails are pretty light, and it just overall makes for a very compact shape. It's not hanging down, it's flushly mounted against the ceiling, so that's really nice. Another option too, you can see how wide this is, and I have 4 bikes and that's all I have. There's 4 members of the family, but if I wanted to add another bike, or if your family is growing, you can always pick up the 2-bike add-on, and those are just going to have those rails to where you can have 6 bikes. Now, if you are a bike enthusiast or your family has already expanded, you can actually pick up the 6-bike out the gate. It's kind of up to you, whatever your life requires for your bike mounting solutions. Now, if you don't have 4 bikes and you don't need to use all those rails, that's actually kind of an added storage solution for you. So you can put your air hoses up here. I can put my electrical cords up here, and it's just going to move everything up and out of the way, and you still have that adjustability. So it really is a versatile storage solution for whatever you can be creative with, assuming you stay under that 50-pound weight limit. As far as the installation goes, when it comes to putting it up in your garage, a lot of times it's going to be unfinished, and so you can actually kind of follow the nail lines and figure out exactly where your studs are going to be. I also suggest maybe using a stud finder just to be sure, because that's really what's going to have that nice hold and give you that weight capacity. But really it's just 4 screws per rail, kind of lay it out as far as your width, and then you just kind of zip it into the studs and you're pretty much ready to go. So overall, you can probably get this knocked out in about hour and a half, and you're going to be able to have that storage ready to use whenever you need it. Now, if you are still worried about doing this install yourself, we're actually going to take a look at that right now, and I'm going to walk you through how to get your bike storage solution installed. So the biggest portion of this whole installation is really planning out where you want this to be. You're going to have to live with it, and so finding a spot where it's easily accessible, yet still gets it out of the way with no overhead problems coming in, like your garage door or anything like that, that's going to be really important. Something else you're going to want to consider, if you're putting this close to a wall, you're going to want to stay about 11 inches away from it, and that's going to make sure that you have room for your handlebars. Now, some of the smaller bikes, that shouldn't be a problem, but as we get to my bike, it's got quite large handlebars, and that's going to become an issue getting it up and off. So let's go ahead. We found a nice big space here, and what we're going to want to do is start looking for our joists. Now, you're able to actually adjust for the width of this, but you really want to go as wide as possible. That's not only going to give it a nice sturdier hold, but also you're just going to get that real estate and be able to use the entire track. Now, if you're looking, kind of plan out how you're going to load your bikes up and how you're going to get them down and see what works best for you, but you have the ability to run it perpendicular to your joists or actually parallel with your joists. Kind of depends on what you're looking for. We're going to be doing the perpendicular mount here, and what that means is I can tell that my joists are actually running here. You can kind of follow the nail pops here, as a lot of your garages are going to be unfinished, so you're going to be able to see that that joist is running this way. So what we'll be doing is mounting it up to the actual joists, and then we'll make a nice line here. Now, they recommend having a straight edge to run a line, but you can actually use your bar here to make that line. So now that I've kind of planned out how I want to lay mine out, what I'm going to do is actually make a mark in the center of where that bar is going to go. There's actually a spot where you can put a screw in, and that's going to hold it in and allow us to actually adjust to make sure that it's squared up. That way it's not crooked. Now, if you need to use a stud finder, that's going to help make sure that you're right on the stud and it's going to have a solid hold. If you don't have a stud finder, again, you can follow the nail pops. A lot of times if you knock, you're going to notice a difference of where it's solid. You can actually go up into your attic and also see the way that the joists are running. You just want to make sure that you are hitting wood. Another way that you can test to see where there is actual a stud there is going to be taking a nail and a hammer, and you can find that spot, take your hammer, hit it in, and if you hit wood, you'll know pretty quickly that you have a good spot. So again, just kind of double checking where I want to mount this up. I see I have a nail pop here, so I'm going to just make a mark actually right below that here. And I'm going to check with my stud finder just to make sure that I have a good spot. So it looks like that's going to work out perfect for us. So I'll go ahead, I'm going to make a nice little mark here, and that way I can install my screw to kind of get this partially mounted up. So we'll go ahead and get this up. Now it's going to be a Phillips head screw, or you can actually use a 1/4 inch bit, kind of whatever works best for you. And I'm going to just drill this up, make sure I make contact with wood. And you should leave about an inch gap. I've already kind of started to feel that I'm biting into the wood, so that's a good sign. Leaving this gap is going to allow us to slide that rail on and kind of give it a quick hold. That way we can make our other points of where we're going to mount up. So you're going to see it actually has a slot here to be able to put this over the screw, slide it over, and that should hold it in place for now. So that's going to kind of give us a nice little outline of where we need to be. And again, you can use this as a straight edge. It's going to be kind of nice following our tape line here, but if you want to get precise, you can actually measure from the wall from each side just to make sure that you have the same distance. But again, sometimes your interior walls aren't exactly square, so find one that looks parallel, and you know, just find a reference point that's going to help. I can use my garage door opener bracket here, but either way, just make sure that you have it nice and parallel. So now that I have the one holding it up, what I'm going to need to do is find our other studs. And you can see I'm just going to follow these along. And I can double check with my stud finder again. So we'll go ahead and do that. And it's going to be kind of easy here. I'm just going to be able to mark this out. And again, we're just going to kind of get a rough spot here where we know that the joist is. Looks like we're good right about here. And that makes sense. We have our nail there. So I'm going to just make a mark here. And what I'm going to do is just kind of move this over it, and I can see that I have the holes there, the slots, and I can see my mark, but I'm going to make sure that I am actually squared up. And as long as you follow that perpendicular line, you're still going to be on the stud. So once you're happy with that spot, go ahead and take one of the wood screws that we put in like before, and we'll go ahead and get this mounted up. Kind of where I had my mark, I'm kind of eyeballing here. Again, I can follow my tape line, and that's going to put us pretty close to where we need to be to make sure that it's nice and squared up. So I'll go ahead and get this one mounted up. So now just a double check, you're going to see we have it nice and squared up. I have 2 of these screws in, so we got 2 of the 4 screws in. The other 2, this is a good chance to make sure that you are covering the stud spread. So I can see right here where this nail pop is, that's going to go into a stud. And then on the other side, I also have the same thing. So that's going to allow for a nice even spread. It's going to hold this bar up and make sure that it's sturdy. Now, once you have the 4 screws in, you can actually start tightening them down, but something you're going to want to check is making sure that the ones that are on those slotted slides with those holes, you're going to want to make sure that the screw head is actually in the small part. That way it's not popping out. Now that we have our one rail up, it's going to make it a lot easier to make sure that the other one's square. And that's just going to be real easy by measuring out the distance. And I'll just make a line, and we can actually use the bar to get a straight line. That way we can figure out that it's perfectly parallel. Now, you are going to want to make sure that you are doing the widest available. So ours is going to be 48 inches. So we'll go ahead, and I'm going to just measure from each kind of screw hole and then just kind of make a line, and then I'll clean that up by using the bar to straight line it. Now, if you really want to make sure that it's squared up properly, you can actually take a Carpenter square and kind of use the rail and get this nice in a 90 degree here, and then that should give you a direct line of exactly where you're going to be going. That way you can kind of determine the distance on the other side, and that way you know they're lined up perfectly. So we have our main rails actually installed. Everything's looking good and nice and solid and tightened down. So now we need to get our cross rails put together. That way we can get our bikes hung up. So grab one of your crossbars, and then you're gonna grab your hook here, and this has this little trolley, and we're just gonna slide these in for now. You can kind of just place them in the center. And then based on the actual width here, this is where it's going to sit in. It's going to be pretty easy to do here. So this is going to sit up top, allowing it to actually slide along our main rails. So we're going to want to make sure we have this pin in the proper orientation. We're going to be doing ours on the widest one here just because we spaced it out that way. So pin goes in. This is going to slide through here, and it can go either way. There's no proper way to do it. So just kind of put that through, and you might have a little more luck if you kind of push that with your finger, if you can get it in there. And you're going to see there's a little notch there, and that's going to be for your E-ring or your E-clip, whatever you want to call it. And these are kind of tricky to get on if you don't have the right tools. Essentially what they do is just with tension, they're going to kind of clip on. So 2 ways to do it. If you have an actual cotter pin or an E-ring pliers, these make it a lot easier to just kind of, you can put them in the actual grooves here, and then it'll space it apart, making it pretty easy to just press in, and that's going to spread that, go around that notch. Just take your time because these can fly off under tension. So, but once you have that spread apart, that should just pop in place like that. Now I'm going to do the other one, and I'll show you another way to do that as well. Now another way to do this is you can kind of just take your fingers here and just kind of get it to where it's seated on there just a little bit. It should kind of just stay in an upright position here. And then you can come back with a set of pliers. Doesn't really matter what kind, but just kind of grab on the top of it and on that pin, and with a little bit of pressure, we should be able to get it to snap on like that. Next, we'll grab our end caps, and you're going to see it's actually got the slot here where the track goes, so it really goes in just one way. They already have the holes drilled, which is really nice, and there's holes actually on the end cap, so getting these screws started is really easy. So you can go ahead and just use a Phillips head screwdriver, and we should be able to get these nice and tightened in. Now there's going to be one screw per side, so make sure you put 2 screws on each end cap, and then you're going to have an end cap on the other. And so that's going to be pretty much the basic of one of the actual sliding rails, and you're just going to repeat that same process for the other 3. So now that we have one actually put together, we can go ahead and slide our rollers into those rails. And I'm going to go ahead and get all of these on, just slid on, and then we can get our end caps on here. And just like we put the end caps on our sliding rails here, we're going to go ahead and do the same on our main rails. So let's get all 4 of those installed. So we have it all installed. Now we just need to test it by actually hanging our bikes. So raising this up, this just slides around the wheel, and you can see it pivots, which is great. And I can also slide this along to make contact with the other actual hanging hook here. And then I can make room for my next bike by just sliding this down. And we'll just get our larger bike here. Now the great thing too is if you're worried about your bikes making contact, you're going to be able to move these around as necessary. And they're doing a great job of holding this all up. It's going to be easy to gain access to these by just sliding them down to a point where it's easy to lower them. And now I can actually get my car back in the garage. And that was a look at the Saris Cycle Glide ceiling mount bike storage solution for 4 bikes or 6 bikes.